All right. Hello and welcome to the Mannerist podcast, where we explore the thoughts and works of the old masters. I'm Rashid and this is David, and today we are discussing sketching. But before we do that, we are going to do a sort of review of our last week's sort of resolve that we reached after sort of discussing the manner of how copying can help or hurt an artist. So, what was the result, Dave? If you remember it correctly.
The result from like our last podcast.
The last week when we talked about like how one should copy things.
Oh, I think we ended on like you should copy the aspects that you need to copy, rather than copying like a whole picture. I think that was
exactly.
right, wasn't it? That's what we ended on.
That was we sort of reached it from a sort of a journal entry from Delacroix that I mentioned, that when he talked about copying in terms of copying to learn something, he was not saying like you should not just copy thinking the artist you're copying is God and you have to like be completely faithful.
Right.
That's not how he sort of approaches copying. Just like you said, you have to copy the aspects that sort of speak to your own thought. And in that sense, you should not copy things that neither speak to you nor are, might be completely wrong, as you sort of see in certain pictures, where a tiger might look like a bird because the artist didn't know it. Like you should not be thinking of the artist as this unsurmountable god on Olympus that you have to be very, very faithful to. You should you should copy with your own thought in the forefront. And also I sort of said, that's still a very complicated topic to talk about, because how do you actually like separate those two? And then I got the idea from a Cezanne quote. And it's very important that we mention that Cezanne was a big fan of Delacroix. And he actually copied so many of Delacroix's works that Cezanne's sort of philosophy towards copying was that you should copy as much as you can, because there's so much to learn from the old masters. Mind you, this is a completely like out of left field idea for the Impressionists. Most Impressionists never copied and kept not never copied. They did copy, but they told others to not copy, let's say, because they wanted to give the impression that they were just, going out into the fields and they were getting nature itself unfiltered in that sense. So they kept telling others to not copy. For Cezanne to say like, you should copy, that was his way of saying, there's so much to learn from the copy. And his condition was very similar to Delacroix's, but put more simply, let's say, and easier to understand terms. His idea of copying was that you should copy as if you're drawing what you're drawing from nature itself. You shouldn't copy as if, I need to recreate every line because I'm forging a Van Gogh or something. No, his idea was that, there are people that copy as if they're forging something, forging a drawing, so to say.
Yeah.
So in that sense, Cezanne's idea was that you should copy, but you should copy as if you're drawing from nature. And this is going to be very important as we're going through this sort of review of last week's idea, because we had 2 weeks since last episode and we got to do some drawings, which I'm gonna showcase here, where both me and you have sort of delved into this idea. And I have a drawing of yours that you actually did a few weeks before we started having this talk, but I kind of saw that you did actually implement this idea of you shouldn't copy exactly in your drawing.
Interesting.
And I want to showcase that as well, because this podcast is about both of our works, and I obviously we have works in the sketching department, but since I just introduced this department like 20 minutes before we started this live cast, I didn't have
New
an
department.
exact example from you. But
right,
I have one from you as well. But yeah, let's delve into these pictures and let's explore this topic from that angle.
Yeah, awesome.
All right, so I'm gonna say share screen and share the window of. So hold on a second. This is a nasty habit when if you're not opening the window directly, it doesn't show it on the windows to be chosen. Okay, there it is. All right, so let me get to Pontormo and share. Alrighty. So our first sort of topic is that we did a copy in Learning from the Masters. Learning from the Masters is an Instagram group that anyone can join, where we copy a work from Drawing Lessons from the Masters from Robert Beverly Hale every week. So this week we had Pontormo, and we were especially sort of discussing his line work and how he sort of varies his line work to over accentuate the forms that he's depicting and how well he's doing it. So that was our topic this week. And obviously Pontormo is a master draftsman. So there was so much to learn from just copying this picture. But I really wanted to sort of assert what I had learned the week before, what we had discussed, in our podcast, in my own copy. So I made a copy like this. And if you notice certain things that, for instance, I did not recreate the sketchy parts of the picture, such as, the head. Yeah, the head is kind of
right.
He sort of drew like two different angles of the head and sort of over accentuated one over the other, but you can still see like chaotic eyes, chaotic chin.
The eyes. Yeah, the eyes don't look like anatomically correct at all.
Yeah, so there's a set of eyes here. Yeah, there's a set of eyes here, and then there's a small faint face here, and there are eyebrows that are sort of going into the eyes. So of course
So
he's sort of just exploring. So it's his way of exploring, and you see this with Renaissance artists. What were you saying? You kind of cut off.
Sorry for a minute. It cut out. I was just saying he might have started off with the model in a different pose, because if the head was further down, maybe he had to restart, or it's all speculation. But I suppose that shows that you don't have to get every stroke correct the first time. You can you can go over lines and you can correct yourself. And
obviously the drawing has to serve the picture itself. And I think Dave cut off there. The second time this is happening, maybe we should rethink his internet connection. But yeah, otherwise I'll just continue. I'll keep his just a sec. I don't want to be closing off the picture, but I'll keep his chat in here. So yeah, he should be able to come back. So I'll continue my point with Pontormo. Okay, let me add him. Alrighty, you're back. Cool.
I'm back from the dead. Yeah.
Perfect. And you were talking about Pontormo as, you were saying that you can always rework lines. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. But I did, like, initially I hadn't seen that second face. So that's interesting. If you really like an image, you can sometimes find the artist has gone over another work, or they've restarted it.
Yeah, and so if someone's copying this, obviously Pontormo, he's free to rework anything he likes. He's making something from scratch. But if you're trying to learn from this, obviously you should not be getting the parts that sort of take away from the picture, such as his sketchy lines, for instance. So I thought that the best way to copy this work would be to just sort of fix those aspects of the picture, cut off the sketchy line work on the face, actually like accentuate it as far as I could see it on the work itself. And I did get some things wrong. For instance, the tilt of the torso in the original is much more pronounced. His right leg is shorter than his left leg because of the foreshortening. It's not like that in my picture. But yeah, I thought like, oh, this is a good way of I'm implementing the things that we talked about last week. I'm not sticking to the copy exactly. I'm really innovating. So I thought that, I was really starting to make my own ideas come forth. But then I sort of saw Betty's copy, and this is what Betty did. Just in case you didn't see last episode, I talked about how Betty actually copied things as, more in lines with her own thought, more that she changes aspects of the drawing so it fits her own way of working. And in her own copy, Betty did this, which is that she essentially made the picture as if this person had posed for her, She did what Cezanne literally was saying in the picture. But, you can still have some contentions as to how, if that was what she did, you could say like, oh no, she only like added facial details. But, I wouldn't say that because I think that she recreated the picture itself. But you could potentially say that, There is a picture I'm going to show later where you can't say that at all. But, just let's talk about this picture first. So she recreated the face entirely. She kept like the feel of the drawing, and she definitely kept the sort of Mannerist aspects of the drawing itself. And she did a very good job on like studying the values of the lines, which was what the drawing was meant to sort of showcase. The drawing was meant to showcase Contorno's study of lines. But she also made the picture with such sort of creative freedom, let's say, that she added the face, she added an expression that she found was suitable. She shaded it in certain ways that weren't in the original picture. And, she just, for instance, there are some curves on the, the body that weren't in the original, but look really well done. And, look like this is, she's drawing almost from a model, like I said. So what are your thoughts on this copy before we go on with towards the rest?
I think it's really good. It's clear that she's like played into her strengths. Like you said, she hasn't just copied it exactly. She's added her own twist to it. And like, if I hadn't seen the Pontormo beforehand, and I'd just seen this one, I would have thought it was an original. An original pose where the model, like Dad, had posed for her. So, I think it's a great example of like she applied her own knowledge, I'm sure, of anatomy and gesture as well, and it just really works well. It's great,
so my initial so exactly as you said, she has just it's almost like she drew from a model, and she has actually played to her strengths to the absolute limit. So okay, he's gone again. Hopefully he'll come back. I'll add him as soon as possible. He'll have to rewatch the stream. But as we're going through that, I'm just going to quickly showcase Dave's drawing. So this is a drawing Dave did. Yeah, let's just act like you never cut off. Okay, so it's only been a few seconds. And we're in your drawing.
Hey, it's me. I'm on the screen. Yes.
Yep.
There's two of me.
Yep. So this is a drawing Dave did based on a Dürer. If you're looking at this and you're thinking like, well, this doesn't really look like a Dürer. You sure about that? You sure Dave did a Dürer? You know, and you know, the reason that might appear that way is because Dave sort of added his own twist to this drawing as well. You know, he sort of made the face more Italian in his own words, and he also simplified the hair to a certain extent. He has also elongated the figure slightly. He has added details on the flowers to make them more. Well, I think you added details on the flowers, right? Because I don't remember them being.
I can't remember the flowers part. I can't remember on the original how detailed they were. Yeah, I'm not sure about that. But the rest,
Well, yeah,
there
you
are
still
a lot
like
of
added.
Right. I kind of just tried to push the original a little bit more. If I remember correctly, Dürer's original, it's like the stomach was much like rounder.
Yeah,
I think it was protruding
to an extent. Yeah.
Yeah, right. And I just didn't really like the look of that, so I altered it to my liking.
Yeah, but you still like the cross hatching and the line strength and so on. You still did try to emulate that, but you didn't emulate the things that did not appeal to you. So it was almost like instinctual for you as well, right?
Absolutely, because I mean,
yeah,
I really enjoyed the line work he had, so I knew going into it I was going to practice that, and try and get that as near to the original as I could, with obviously some alterations and stuff. But yeah, that was another example of take what you need from the drawing, and then apply your own knowledge.
Yeah, and some people notice instinctually, as we can see, like you and Betty understood this quite well. Think he might need to consider changing his internet. Anyhow, so going from that, I will move on to okay, I'm getting really fast at getting you back into the stream.
Yeah, I don't know what is going on. This is strange. I blame Irish internet. That's all I say. In my defense.
Yeah. Alrighty. Anyhow, so from Dave's drawing, we kind of understood this idea that some people do instinctually understand that they have to copy with the sort of what they need to take from the drawing, as opposed to every fault within the drawing itself. We mentioned 2 weeks ago that I made some copies where I copied the faults of the artist as well, because I didn't know what to put there, or like I just was too lazy to put my own idea into it. So this week, I just thought, after seeing the Pontormo copies, that Betty changed the face, but overall, she still did make a copy. So I thought, like, I'm still getting there to an extent. I'm still understanding how to fix the drawing, or like how to put my own ideas towards the drawing, until I thought that I had it covered, until I sort of we did a copy of this Leonardo da Vinci drawing. So we made a copy of this Leonardo da Vinci drawing. You did it, I did it, and Betty did it. And for now, I'm going to talk about what Betty did. We're going to talk about our own copies when we're talking about sketching itself. But for now, I'll just mention what Betty did with this copy, which was she made this picture, which is very lovely. She had some really nice shading on the faces. They have all the personality, and she actually managed to put the second face alongside the first one without it sort of deviating from the overall piece, in a sense. So just gonna add Dave back. Alrighty, I'm getting really good at ignoring this. So from now on, I'm not even gonna mention it. I'm just gonna keep talking, and then you're gonna come back. But yeah, you came back just as I had a question for you. Can you hear me, Dave?
Okay.
Can you hear me?
I missed all of that, so I'm sure
That's
I'm
fine.
sure you got
I
the
had
ball
mentioned
rolling.
those parts to you before. I'm just gonna quickly get into the question for you. But before we mention that, is it possible for you to use your cellular by any chance?
I have tried that, but it's even worse. So
Oh, I
basically,
see.
it's not good for like any streaming.
All right, I'll just get to the question that I had for you,
Cool.
which was, so what do you think of this drawing itself, and what do you think especially of this baby?
The baby. Okay, I know I've seen this. I saw it during the week, but I think the baby is that wasn't in the original, was it? The
So this
baby's
is the
body.
baby in the original. Let me just zoom
Okay.
into the baby.
Yeah, if you wouldn't mind. Ah, okay. So in the original, it's just more of a like an outline, if you could call it that.
Yeah, there's
And
another baby here, which is just the same kind.
Yeah.
So Betty did this copy. Yeah. So
I
this
think
is
Betty
Betty's copy.
kind of
Yeah,
added
go ahead.
features, right?
So yeah, Betty added new features to everything. For instance, these characters, she actually gave them personalities almost. She made these figures in a way that they're more like actually on the page rather than on the sidelines. Anyhow, but what I wanted to discuss was her reaction to how the baby turned out in her drawing, because she was very distraught about it in her sort of description. She said like, "Oh, this feels like two steps back for me, because I couldn't get this baby right." And I was actually puzzled by this reaction from her, because I thought that first of all, like I thought, hold on a second, the baby wasn't well done in the Da Vinci's version either. Da Vinci didn't do a great baby, and Betty failed to live up to that. So why is she so distraught over it? I thought about that, and as I contemplated it, I realized that while I did understand the sort of the concept of copying with while also keeping your own sensibilities intact, I didn't understand it far enough in a sense, because and this was the part where it really clicked on me. We did a copy of Van Gogh, so this was the picture that we copied, and I also had to copy it. I didn't really like this picture that much. It didn't speak to me as much, but I thought like, oh, this has some thick lines. I can sort of use it as practice for my thicker pen. So I made this. No, not this one. This one. I made this copy. And,
That's
it's
cool.
pretty close.
I like that.
think.
I like that.
Pretty close.
It's very close there. It's slightly different, but I think it has the same impact as the original.
Yeah. So he made it with his brush. I made it with a pen. That's pretty much the only difference. I think we even use the same ink, because I use very old ink. But as far as the piece itself is concerned, it was pretty much a recreation of Van Gogh itself. It was pretty much a recreation of his own lines. And I was saying that it was pretty much a recreation of Van Gogh's picture. It was less of an interpretation, because I didn't like the picture that much. I just wanted to practice it.
Okay.
But as I saw Betty's interpretation, as I saw this picture that Betty did, and her interpretation of the piece, I realized that the reason that she had such a reaction to the baby and I didn't was because a sort of a failure in thinking on my end, not hers. Because Betty, when she looks at a piece to study, she actually makes sure that it is it is as if she actually drew it from nature. And she actually got distraught over the baby because it didn't look like she drew it from nature. Whereas I didn't get distraught over the baby because, I didn't care to make it better than Leonardo did, because I didn't think that was what I
Gotcha.
was supposed to be doing. I didn't think that I was supposed to draw the baby as if it's drawn from nature itself. And that didn't click on me quite the same way that it clicked on Betty apparently. And I saw it with this Van Gogh copy that she did. Oh, this is just something she does with everything. She copied the Van Gogh as if she copied it from a model, in a sense. So it's almost a solo podcast at this point. All righty. So I thought that, there was still so much that I could. Are you there?
I'm back. I can hear you from now.
Okay. All right. Cool.
Yeah. So I have a
Let's
quick
just
question.
Hope we can make it at the end of the sentence. Yeah.
I
go ahead.
I know. So that you said you didn't like the piece, Van Gogh's original, but you copied it anyway.
Yeah.
So, what did you learn from it? What was your main takeaway?
Honestly, I didn't learn much of anything other than you can sort of make some cool effects when you're using grayish ink, and then you go over it with a blackish ink. That was the only thing I really learned from it, because I was just copying the drawing itself rather than sort of trying to assert or even learn anything from it. I don't think I learned much from this drawing, but
there's not
Betty.
much to learn.
Yeah, Betty actually approached it as if she was drawing the model itself. She didn't approach it as if she was drawing the drawing. And this is what I realized that I had failed to learn. I had failed to learn that while it wasn't, I wasn't just supposed to get rid of the bad stuff and keep the drawing intact as if that made it better. I was supposed to drew it as if it was right in front of me and I had the courage to tackle it on. And this is something that's important to understand with practicing. I think that you need to, while it is good that you understand certain concepts, unless you take it far enough, then the concepts will not be of much use to you. So in this sense, that it is important to understand the concept that you're not supposed to get the bad things from a copy, and you're supposed to copy it while thinking of how it can benefit you. You need to take that idea to its utmost level in order to benefit from it, wholeheartedly, other than half-heartedly, as I've been doing. So I realized that as I was contemplating, Betty's sort of reaction towards the baby, that I should have had a reaction towards my own baby in the drawing. I should have thought that, I needed to actually fix that up, and I needed to make a viable drawing out of it. So that's what I learned from this experience. I thought I had thought that why would you care about this baby when it was bad in the original, while I should have cared that maybe the baby can use some work. I should have thought of that in my own drawing and also in Betty's drawing. So
I think it really depends what you're
looking
for from the drawing. If you want to really practice your skills and progress in a certain area, then you'll have that perfectionist mentality. But maybe for you, it seems you're a bit more relaxed in maybe the process and the outcome, and as a result, you weren't as hard on yourself.
Well, yeah,
I'm guessing.
But it's also it's something that you have to sort of drill into your head, though, as well, right? So in that sense, it's true for me, it's true for you, it's true for Betty. In a sense, we're just on a different sort of spectrum, you know. I had less of this idea that I needed to assert myself into the drawing, you know, and Dave had more of that idea that he had to assert himself into a drawing to some extent. And obviously Betty, as we have shown, have really sort of, she has that instinctually, this instinctual idea that she has to assert herself. And so I was just saying, Dave, that it's on a spectrum. I was at the lowest end, you were at a bit higher, and Betty was obviously at the highest that we've seen, because she actually took it personally when she couldn't do the baby itself, you know, on her picture. Right. So
yeah.
So last week I mentioned. Were you talking there, or was I talking?
No.
Okay, cool.
You were talking.
So yeah. Okay. So I'm gonna have a question for you. But last week we mentioned Emerson, and about you only read to learn, to start your own team. So do you think where do you want to learn, do you want to hear the whole quote? Because I pulled it up just to like sort of drill this idea into our heads a bit more.
Okay. How long is the quote?
It's not that quote.
If it's like 2 pages long, I'll pass. But
it's very short. So essentially, okay, I think we're gonna have to reconsider this format if Dave keeps. It only happened once last week. But I don't know.
Hey.
Hey.
Yeah. If you have the question, I'll try and answer it quickly.
Alrighty. So essentially what was happening was that a kid was asking Emerson, how should I read in order to write? This is almost like our dilemma of how should I copy in order to draw myself. So Emerson was saying, you should not read you should not read the entire book for one thing. You should learn to tell from the beginning of chapters and from glimpses of the sentences whether you need to read them entirely through. So turn page after page, keeping your writer's thought before you, but not tarrying with him until he has brought you the thing you are in search of. So, don't just take everything he said. Just keep with him until he has brought you what you were searching for. Then dwell with him. If so, he has what you want. Then, you can sort of let him into your thoughts if he has what you need. And he said that, but recollect that you only read to start your own team.
Yeah.
So in a sense, Emerson doesn't even want the writer to infiltrate your thoughts unless he has exactly what you need. In that sense, he's telling us that we need to keep our heads straight, and we need to stop, we need to make sure that our own creativity is constantly at play, even when we're reading. So what are your thoughts on that as it relates to your practice?
I mean, like I'd agree with that completely. He's kind of saying.
Okay, it's going to be a slightly longer episode than usual. We're going to fix it by next week, I promise. Alrighty. All right. So he was probably saying.
Hear me. I'm gonna rush. I'll rush through that. I agree completely. You should always have that end goal of being original. I think. Take what you need from other artists, or in maybe the case of some people, they take and study one artist, and use those ideas that you gain along the way and become, at the end of it, you should be your own, like, how would you say it? What's the word? Distinguished self. You know,
I
people should
see.
recognize that is one of your works, you know,
Yeah,
not just
you do
someone in
it to
the
start your
style.
own team.
Yeah, so 100%. I think you need to start your own team. Sorry, I'm rushing through that answer. Just trying to get something in.
Yeah,
I
that's
meant to.
fine. I guess you'll have to like rewatch this episode to like learn what I was saying most of the time.
Yeah, I'm
Anyhow, I
telling
think you were here
you.
for most of it.
I I was here for a majority, but at the end I'll have to study it.
Yeah,
I don't
but
even know what I've seen.
otherwise,
So.
okay. So yeah, otherwise we kind of touched on the topic that obviously I had sort of grasped the notion of what I was saying last week, but it still goes
Yeah.
beyond like just grasping it and even like practicing it. You have to not only practice it but take it far enough, and that's a very important thing to learn as an artist, because you need to sort of protect your own thought to an
Yeah.
extent. You have to protect your own
Yeah. You
idea,
have to.
because yeah,
You have to be creative. You have to keep your creativity intact. I think it's one of the main parts about being an artist.
yep,
Yeah,
exactly.
creativity.
And speaking of creativity, let's take this to our topic of the day. And we're not going to touch this on for that long, but we're going to be talking about sketching today, and how in a sense how sketching helps that creative process and helps you assert yourself and assert your own thought. And I actually released an audiobook in between our episodes because we couldn't do an episode last week. You listened to most of it, and essentially it's an audiobook on Delacroix's life as it's mentioned by Baudelaire. And there's a very interesting line about sketching in the audiobook itself, which is, if you can't draw a man, this is Delacroix's quote, if you can't draw a man whilst he's falling from the third story window, until he falls to the ground, if you can't draw him in that time, when he's falling from the third story window to the ground, then you will never be able to go in for the big stuff, big paintings or great works of art that are huge in a sense, which is very interesting how he is putting that sort of concept in there. He's saying that if you can't draw, like visualize something quickly, if you don't have that skill, then you will not be able to go in for big paintings, which some artists it would puzzle them, because some artists actually work piecemeal in a sense. They make like the corner of the picture first, and then they go all the way through without planning anything. Why do you think Delacroix is saying this?
Well, I think he's trying to instill that idea of capturing the essence of something, making sure it's gestural, it's not stiff. I think that's like an important part of like art and say sketching before creating a piece, is you can really feel out the ideas. I suppose that's kind of a tangent, but in regards to Delacroix, I think he's correct, because then it shows you understand your craft in the sense that if you can sketch something, that's falling through the air, then you can sketch anything really.
I mean,
You know
he's
what I mean?
sort of exaggerating there. Obviously, you can't really sketch someone
exactly.
that quickly, but
Yeah.
he is sort of grasping on the notion that, in order to visualize something big, you have to sort of be able to visualize it quickly. And that's important for him. And, let's actually, let's not talk about stuff that Delacroix said. Let's actually look at what he did. let's look at his stuff. So I have a few of his drawings. I don't have a lot. I don't want this to take up too much time. But let me just open that up and hold on, not the full screen. All right. So you seem to be cutting off more when we're just talking about other pieces. That's interesting. I don't think you ever cut off while you were both on the screen. Okay,
No,
so this is a Delacroix piece. And let me just make it bigger. So this is like, I think this is almost like a small paper size. And he has drawn it obviously very quickly. And you can see if you have drawn in any way, you can tell these lines are made very quickly. So he does actually do what he preaches. Let me go back to our 2-person view. And he's gone. I guess that didn't help. Oh, I can't really have this part without him, so I will just wait a minute. And there we go. You're in. We were talking about how he actually does what he... Yeah, just don't even say sorry at this point. Let's just keep going on. I guess from the next episode on, we can try doing this not live, so we can sort of edit those parts out later. I think that will actually solve the issue.
That's a good idea.
All right. So we're already at the end of the episode anyway. So let's quickly talk about what we just saw with Delacroix. So, and we can see a few more. Let me just get back to it. Hell, why do we even need to be on the screen? This is much better.
Full screen is better.
Yeah, just look at the pieces themselves. So this is the sketch that we were talking about. And there are some more examples. This is more like him exploring the forms. This is the Leonardo we were talking about. We're going to talk about our own sort of pieces later. But so this is another piece where he's just sort of, again, exploring the forms of animals. This is for painting where a tiger is biting a horse, I think. And he's just trying everything. He's just trying all sorts of different ideas. So let's go back to our view. I'm getting the hang of this. I think it's going to be good going forward. Anyhow, so what Delacroix did with those sketches is what he's actually preaching. He's saying that, you should be able to visualize things very quickly. Obviously, he has visualized something specific in the tiger pictures, and he has visualized the entire piece in the sketch for the composition that we saw at first. So he is actually asserting his own thought in a quick manner as inspiration strikes him. So, so based on that, you kind of understand that it is very important to get the hang of sketching. Oh. Okay, let's keep this very short. Okay. So what are your thoughts on how Delacroix implemented the sketching? Just your observations, and then I can get to the point, and then we can do a better format next week.
Yeah, I mean, his sketches, they're kind of wild, I think. I think we might mention it before the podcast, but he's got chaotic sketches, but you can see he's got a good knowledge base.
And don't you think that that type of sketching is essential to an extent?
Yeah, definitely.
Like we do talk about them as being chaotic, but we're not like thinking, oh, he was wrong to do that, right?
No, exactly. Like he didn't intend those to be finished. He's getting his ideas and his whatever he needs to do to understand those poses. down in that
Exactly.
quick fashion.
And the entire composition as well.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. So yeah, exactly. As you said, it is important to get the poses and the composition, and it's important to think these on the paper. And so my sort of new maxim, last week's maxim was related to study. I'm just going to go into my new maxim about sketching. And yeah, we did do like sketches based on Leonardo, but we don't have that much time to talk about them. And I didn't have that much to say about them anyways. Maybe we'll talk about them in the future. But for now, let's just get to the maxim that I'm just going to put forth for this episode. And let's see how we do until next week. Essentially, that Emerson, in this book that he's writing about reading as opposed to writing, and I just said that reading is close to what we're doing with copies. We are reading in order to write our own works. We are copying in order to make our own pieces. So what Emerson writes about reading and writing is that you should read, obviously, as much as it can help you write. And that's obvious what I was talking about as it relates to Betty's pieces, and how she actually did that more than us, and how we need to sort of push ourselves towards looking into that even further than how I did with the Pontormo, and maybe even more than what you did with the Albrecht Dürer. Obviously, you took it more to heart than I did, even before we even talked about the topic. But yeah, that's what we were talking about as it relates to last week. But for this week, Emerson says in his writing that you should read to be able to write better, and you should not read when your mind is in a creative mode, in a sense. He says that your creativity is important, and he actually he urges his students to actually write in a journal whenever like inspiration strikes them, write their thoughts, in a sense. So if you need to write something on that topic or write something on that sort, you can just open your own thoughts and delve into them. And in the same way, I think an artist should sketch when inspiration hits him, and he should have the speed and the skill that requires him to get his thought on the paper. So when he does need his compositions, he does need his inspiration, just I bet when Delacroix was drawing those tigers, he didn't have a composition in mind. He just wanted to have, just in case in the future he needs to make a picture with action, like a hunt, for instance. He has those thoughts that he had ready at hand with his sketches. So in that sense, an artist needs to learn how to put his spontaneous creative thoughts on the paper. So to an extent, this week's maxim is to, like, if inspiration strikes us, we should not be afraid to sketch it out, and we should actually keep that as a very, almost one of the most important aspects of creative pursuits of any kind. We should be sketching when we feel creative. And oh yeah, so I did have one thing to say about Leonardo's drawing, and I'm just going to go into his own drawing for now. I'm not going to talk about our own copies. Okay, let me just go there. Just a sec. I have it open now and share. And this relates to our maxim of today. So in this sketch of Leonardo, I'm just going to... So he has chaotic lines, chaotic explorations of the figures, but he also has very sort of well done figures, very detailed figures, especially here with the boy, for instance, and the old man. He has more details set up, and it's almost like his clearer thoughts with his more chaotic thoughts, or like less clear thoughts, things he understood less, for instance, whatever this monster is. So in a sense, he is like his real-time thoughts are on the paper. He can visualize his own thoughts on the paper in a sense. And some of our thoughts are very detailed, and some of our thoughts are just thoughts. They're just sort of fleeting notions of how we experience the world and our memory. I'm just going to quickly wait for him to come back. It's almost done. Yeah, so you got most of that, right?
Yeah.
So I'll just
Yeah.
say the maxim itself. So the maxim that I thought of, on top of you should actually use it when you should sketch when you feel creative. You should not even be copying if you feel creative. You should stop copying and sketch something or work on something if that's what you were doing, for instance. That's clear, right? So the maxim I thought of,
and I agree with that.
Yeah. So the maxim I thought of was that that old kung fu cliche, don't think, feel.
Don't think, feel. I've heard that.
That old kung fu movies. They always even like Kung Fu Panda. Like he has problems and like you don't think about it, just feel. So he learns it through like his stomach and how hungry he is for, I don't know, whatever. But that sort of that old cliche. So I sort of turned it around based on drawing, and this is the maxim I came up with. Don't think of a picture.
Go for it.
Don't think of a picture and then draw it. Instead, just think on the paper itself. Like Leonardo is doing on that page. Don't store anything in your head. Actually, because your memory is not reliable, keep them in a place where you have access to them, as Delacroix does, as Leonardo does. So that's my maxim about creativity and how it relates to sketching. You can just you should not just keep your creative thoughts in your head. You should have them on the paper. And that's the most important part of sketching. You should spend because creativity is a sort of currency, just like time. You don't have an infinite amount of it. And when you do have it, you should actually, you should make sure to store it well. And you should be able to store it in a way that you can use it. So that's my maxim.
Exactly.
For this week.
Yeah. Exactly. Using your imagination, and you shouldn't always have to be inspired to start drawing. Just start drawing.
Exactly.
And you can get that inspiration as you draw.
Yep. Well, that was our episode on sketching, and we did better than last time. It's actually 53 minutes, even though there was at least 3 minutes of waiting. But I think that's I think we're getting somewhere. I think we are actually getting somewhere.
Being MIA. Yeah.
All righty.
It's going well.
All righty.
So,
we're gonna fix that
guys.
eventually. But thank you for listening to us. And we'll see you next week, where we're going to actually talk about... I did actually think of what to talk about next week. I believe we were going to talk about lines and how lines... Because we're studying the lines part of drawing lessons from the masters, which is a book we're studying.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, we're going to talk about how line values affect drawings. And we're going to talk about it in relation to our works in learning from the masters. That's what's going to happen next week. For now, I'll repeat the maxim: don't think and then draw, just think on the paper itself. And do not spend your creative currency, spend your creative currency wisely, and keep your creativity stored well. All right, see you next week.
See you next week.